when I quit surfing, I quit everything.
Mm-hmm.
Drugs, drinking, everything,
Mm-hmm.
partying,
Mm-hmm.
the whole works, Quit coffee, any kind of caffeines, didn't touch them. Sodas, nothing.
Okay.
So it was that period of time that I began to find who I was and my connection to the ocean, right? And to my life.
Mm-hmm.
What was really important to my life was remembering that ocean is home.
Mm-hmm.
I am the ocean, and the ocean is me. Because that's our family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything has always been focused around the ocean. And it wasn't about surfing or anything else. It was about what my native self was coming out of. I was allowing myself to be me.
That's Tom Pohaku Stone. I'm Jamie Brissick. You're listening to Soundings, brought to you by the Surfer's Journal. The Journal is a member-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Outerknown, Patagonia, Rainbow Sandals, Vans, and Yeti. More like a book than a magazine, the Journal delivers 136 pages of independent storytelling every 8 weeks, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. To learn more and to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. This episode of Soundings is presented by Costa Sunglasses. If you're anything like me and you spend lots of time around the water, then you know just how important it is to have a good pair of shades. And since 1983, when a group of intrepid outdoorsmen set out to make sunglasses that could stand up to the harsh environments they regularly encountered, Costa remains the choice in eyewear among those committed to life on the water. So whether you're diving in, climbing aboard, suiting up, sliding one, leaning back, or all the above, head to costadelmar.com to grab your pair and to see what's out there. A goofy foot with an elegant style, Tom Pohaku Stone is also a professor of Hawaiian Studies as well as a board carver who specializes in ancient Polynesian surfcraft, among them alayas and olos. Born and raised in Hawaii, Tom started surfing at age 4. He made a name for himself at Pipeline and in the early 1970s was featured on the cover of Surfer magazine twice. Around that time, he found cocaine. There was smuggling, there was a dramatic bust, there was prison time. While incarcerated, Tom found books and higher learning. He quit drugs, studied, and after his release, got a job as a lifeguard and enrolled in college. He got his BA in Hawaiian Studies from the University of Hawaii in 1998 at the age of 46. A few years later, he earned his MA for his thesis paper about the ancient Polynesian practice of riding holua boards, which are long wooden sleds down grass-covered mountains. We spoke at his home on the east side of Oahu. Tom, stoked to have you on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah. As I was driving here, a friend of mine who lives in New York City but grew up in Florida, is in his early 60s. I told him that I was coming to see you, and he said, I had a picture of Tom up on my wall when I was a kid, and it was an Art Brewer photo, and I want to say it was a left tube. You're a goofy foot, so it was a front side barrel.
Right. I believe that's the Art Brewer photo where I ran Art Brewer over.
Yeah?
And he kind of chipped my fin. I was
Wow.
pretty pissed.
And how did you find your way to surfing?
Well, that's kind of a long story to be clear, Jamie, but it began out of Waikiki, I guess, and that was around 1954. And all the uncles were still there, right? So you had Duke, you had Steamboat, you had Blue Makua, you had Cruisin', you had all the Beach Boys of the era.
Wow.
And the next generations coming up, right, that we looked up to as kids. And I think I was inspired mostly by Val Ching,
Mm-hmm.
who was, doing the Kapahulu Wall,
Mm-hmm.
and his, stand-up riding on what everybody was calling the Paipo at the time.
Okay.
right? And his, playing around with fins, building, putting fins on his boards, his twin fin. People don't know that Val did that, and
Wow.
and he was ripping on this 4-foot piece of plywood, right?
Wow. And everyone else were riding without fins at this time.
They were still riding wood boards, and that's just when the pop-outs came. I think Dale Velzy,
Okay.
first pop-outs.
Yep.
He made something like 58 of them here in Hawaii or something. And so Barry Napoleon had one, and let me see who else. Downing, I think, had one. But, they were just, those pop-out foam boards were just beginning.
Yep.
So everybody was still riding wood boards.
Mm-hmm.
The big rack, the surfboard rack was still on the beach with all the wood boards in it. And by the time, I believe I was 5 or 6, that after staring at that rack for so long and wanting to just, get a board out of it, the rule was for us kids is that we had to be able to lift it over our lip. There was a lip at the bottom that was maybe 3 inches high.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I would try and lift one of those wood boards. And to me, they were like giant wood boards.
Wow.
I was a tiny little kid. So when I finally got it over the lip, that's when my problem began, because I didn't know how to pull the board out and balance it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Duke came up behind and grabbed the board, threw it over his shoulder, walked down to the water, and says, "When you come back, you have to rake the beach."
Wow.
And I was like, "Yeah." And off I went.
Incredible. So let me ask you this. The Beach Boys, we have an impression of them. The younger generation probably has them in sort of this legendary mythological way. You as a young kid coming to that scene and meeting these folks, what did they exude to you? What did they give off to you that was so attractive that made you want to keep surfing?
Well, I mean, because they lived for the ocean.
Yeah.
They lived the ocean, and my family is the same. I mean, I didn't even know till later in my life that my dad was part of that crowd.
Okay.
That he surfed. My dad never, ever spoke about his surfing days, ever.
Do you think it was because he didn't want you to follow in his footsteps, or?
I don't, he hated me surfing. He hated me being in Waikiki. He hated me being down there because, I was down there a lot because of my mom was a hula dancer at the Kodak Hula Show, and so were all my aunts and everybody. So I was always around Waikiki, and my dad was unhappy. But I learned later on in life that my sisters told me that, oh, Dad surfed all the time as a kid.
Wow.
And I never knew that. So, but perhaps he didn't want me to do what he was doing and stuff.
So the Beach Boys at this time, did they represent a kind of a lifestyle around the ocean, but they were also probably represented a sense of freedom and a lot of fun too, right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Everything was fun. Uncle Rabbit, who happens to really be my uncle.
Rabbit Kekai.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rabbit Kekai was definitely my uncle. My mom and him were cousins and stuff like that. So, but it was, they were kolohe. They were rascals all the way. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much liked that lifestyle. I mean, I guess I gravitated to that free spirit of surfing. And that's what surfing to me was always about is that, we surf because we love it. And that's what they were doing. And I got to see them do things that made me appreciate their abilities as really masters of the waves, of Nalu, of sliding, right? It was really beautiful always to watch them surf. And if there was no surf, they were diving, paddling canoe, hustling, hustling Waiines.
Yeah, right. There were a lot of tourists at this time, I'm guessing, at
Oh,
Waikiki. Yeah.
yeah. All the women coming from wherever they're coming in the world just love them, and they were just like party animals.
Yeah.
So I guess that pretty much rubbed off on me too.
Uh-huh. And so from there, riding early waves at Waikiki, where did your surfing go from there?
Well, I mean, because we all grew up together, so there was Reno, Keone, Dwayne Cruson, and a couple of the other guys, Bon Cheng, Dino Cheng, all we were all part of that. And if I had stayed in Waikiki, my life would have been totally different. But because my dad wasn't happy with me being there, I got shipped off to the Big Island, over to Hawaii on the north side, and I lived up there and became a cowboy for a couple of years. And then when I came back, it was game on. And I went back to Waikiki, and Joey Gerard was one of the young beach boys there. And the surf was big, what they call first break. So I was determined to go ride something big. And so, Joey said, okay, and he got me a longboard, and we started to paddle out to Poplars. And on the way out, I couldn't handle, and I was just crying. And so, he took me all the way back. And I felt so bad. And he says, that's okay. And, in time it'll come, right? So just surf where you can right now, and then eventually you'll be riding big waves. And so at the time that I stayed there, I pretty much left Waikiki at about 10, 11 years old.
Okay.
And moved on to Ala Moana. And then from Ala Moana, I just moved on to the North Shore by 11, 12. And I was surfing the North Shore with a friend of mine, Derek Murakami. So I pretty much never looked back after that. I never thought about anything in Waikiki. I didn't want to be part of the scene. I didn't want to be a beach boy. I just wanted to surf.
Yep. And you were a teenager then. Were you still in school, or did you drop out?
I was pretty much not in school. Let's just put it that way. There was times I was forced to go back, but I never stayed because by 11, 12, I was pretty much on the streets. I was pretty much on my own. I had a falling out with my dad, and that was that.
Wow.
So,
and you were on the cover of Surfer magazine a couple of times, right?
yes.
At what point did you know that at what point did your surfing skills really kick in? At what point did you know you were good?
16, 17. That's when Paul Steele wanted to make rocket ships for me. I was like, shoots, I'm on.
Rocket ships, so we're talking Shortboard Revolution now. What year?
That's about 67, 68.
Okay.
And that's when, everybody was going through all the, controversies over, what was right, what was good. That's when, I think it was Brewer, right? With Surfboards Hawaii, that made that big wave design sort of based on the Hot Girl.
Okay.
Yeah, that triple stringer redwood that was inspired, I believe, by Phil Edwards at the time. Phil Edwards was one of my idols. So.
So you're riding this rocket ship board. What does it look like? What length is it? What was the design?
7'6", 16 inches wide, pintail, just under 3 inches thick.
And you're surfing what spots?
That was my pipe board.
Nice.
That was my pipe sunset board. It was like a needle, 16 inches wide. That's not wide at all.
Yeah, that's so narrow.
That is super narrow.
But I can see that working at Pipeline, a wave like Pipeline back then.
Right.
Any really memorable waves or surf sessions at this time?
I a lot, quite a few. I think the memorable moment or time in surfing was we showed up at Pipeline early morning. It was kind of on the edge of maybe Second Reef. Jock was out. A lot of the guys were out at the time.
Jock Sutherland, yeah.
Yeah, Jock Sutherland, right? And it just didn't look all that, right? So I just wanted to look down the coast. So we went all the way to Haleiwa, and it was a perfect west swell, one of the strongest west swells I ever saw, even till today. And we just decided we'll just grab a 6-pack of beer and call it a day, right? So on our way back, headed back to Kailua or the windward side, this side, I said, hey, just stop right at Pipe and let's check it out. Because we had gone by the bay, and the bay was 20 foot plus, and everybody had shifted there. When we got to Pipe, I was amazed. There's nobody out. It's perfect. Cloud break happening. And you know where they call off the wall today? There was a wall there, but it was just empty lots.
Okay.
And so we're standing up there and looking down at log cabins. I saw somebody paddling out, and I was going, whoa, who's that? And I wasn't sure where they were going. And that guy kept paddling and paddling. And you could see that it had already gone to this cloud break where today they shoot, everybody does the big wave off of log cabins and in that
Outer
area,
logs,
all the tow-ins and stuff. Now they're paddling in. Well, that's about where this guy paddled out to and took off on a wave. And I was going, what the? And I was just watching him come across, and then he kicked out outside of rock piles, right? But still out in the ocean. It was just a little dot, probably 3/4 of a mile offshore, maybe more. And I went, holy crap. And the waves were perfect. There was, no one today has ever seen Pipe like that, ever again. And it lasted 3 days. And, some of the guys that got to surf that, it was pretty amazing. But I decided, I told my friends, hey, I'm going to go out. So we went down to where Eokai Beach Park is now, right? Jumped in over there on the trail. That wave, from where it began to where it ended, it was only 2 feet. Right there where the lifeguard towers are today. A 2-foot wave, perfect. You just jump in and just follow these lines. It looked like what Indo or Fiji would look like, right? And it's just these perfect waves. And as I was paddling out past what we call Second Reef today, there's this guy between Second and Third Reef just coming across this like 30-foot face.
Wow.
And I'm just going, holy crap. And he hits this bowl, and it's just this monstrous barrel, and you could see him laughing in that tube. And he's just standing there on his super long board, right? I think it's 11 foot, maybe bigger. And he eats it, and he's swimming, right? And I'm paddling, and he's laughing, and it's Jose Angel.
Wow.
And that's how I met Jose Angel.
Wow.
And he goes, it's unreal. Just go. And go where? He says, out there.
Wow. So just so I've got it clear, so the wave starts at about 30 feet out the back, and then it goes all the way down to about a 2-foot wave.
Yes.
Tapers all the way. So it's almost more like a Uluwatu or one of the
correct.
G-land or something.
Correct.
And just for our listeners, can you describe who Jose Angel is or was?
Jose Angel was he was one of the most renowned big wave surfers of our period. He was a teacher, principal, and awesome black coral diver, right? So he was a waterman, and I didn't know much about Jose Angel because we never talked unless we were in the water together.
Yeah, I love that about surfing.
Yeah, we only talked there, and I never, 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 I ne except for one time before he passed away. I met him on land, but he didn't know who I was. I didn't know. But when we were in the water, we knew each other, and he knew me. I knew him on land, because he used to hang out with everybody, Kimo Hollinger and all those guys, right? But he was a fantastic big wave surfer. He's the one who really encouraged me to just push the limits on big waves. And he was riding his big longboard, and I was riding my rocket ship 7.6. And
wow. And at this point, you're completely sort of pioneering new territory in terms of standing in barrels as big as this room we're sitting in right now. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
What was that? I mean, it's so interesting because we now, like anyone standing in big barrels has a reference point, right? They can look at chopu, they can look at pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. But for you, that was new ground. Yeah.
I don't think anybody ever saw a pipe like that. I mean, Jose, in the time we surfed that first day of that swell, that's what he kept saying, is that I've never seen anything like this in my life. And I said, well, I don't know. He says, no, it's never been like this. The sand was lined up. There was sand as far as you could see out into the ocean. And that's where we were going, always to the top of that sandbank. And it was just, when you took off on a wave, it was just this massive face. So what we call 30 feet then is what they call it 60 feet today.
Yeah, right.
Right? And it was massive. I mean, I wanted to shed in my pants.
Jeez. And no leashes, yeah?
No leashes. Wow. I mean, you ate it, you swam. The first wave I dropped into was magical. I mean, I just took off and looked down this wall that was just standing up, and it just like tapered and started to just fold over, and it was just like standing in just pure silence. And
wow. And
you're just driving and I'm looking down the line and going, oh, can I go faster? And it's not on the bottom, it's high line, right? You have to stay high because you always want to be dropping, right? So I'm going down this face, and that just seems forever.
Wow.
It's just never ending. And then all of a sudden, I guess we hit the intersections, and then it just starts to accelerate.
Jeez.
And it just, I mean, it's getting smaller, but it's accelerating at the same time. It's still 15, 20 feet, and it's just going faster. But that caught the eye of everybody that was down at Tiger's house by sunset, right?
Okay.
When he lived across the street from Cammy's, they were all looking down, and they could see the wave, and that's a bend around Rocky Point. But they could see somebody in this tube, and they all jumped on bicycles, and everything came down there. Who's that? Boozer came down. Sam Hawk was there, right? So, I mean, all the boys from Tiger's house just rushed down there, and they were just like going, "Holy crap!" Nobody ever saw anything like that. Tiger never saw anything like that.
Incredible. You know what's fascinating for me is when you think of waves of that quality in this present day, you immediately think of a crowd, and there's an anxiety that sets in when if you think about Pipeline, any good day right now, it's packed, insanely packed. But the idea of being out there and being able to kind of move at your own pace and not having that factor of other people sounds so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah. That shortboard revolution, in my understanding of it, what's interesting is there were a lot of revolutions happening in the world at that time. But the interesting thing that I always think about is the way there was a sort of psychedelic revolution happening at the time, that the boards were getting shorter. And I always think that they were not separate. They probably had a lot to do with one another.
Oh, they definitely did. I mean, I don't think anybody I knew was at the time, and I was a younger person, right? They were like pretty stoned out of their mind with acid, mescaline, psilocybin. That was pretty abundant on the North Shore.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
And you were surfing on it, and then that probably found its way into the shaping rooms as well. When you think back on that now, do you think it sort of fed and inspired a lot of creativity, or do you think it was a hindrance?
Well, that's a hard one to actually put my finger on. But to be honest, I believe there was inspiration there.
Yeah.
But I think we got kind of out there.
Yeah.
Right? Because hanging with someone like, for example, Bunker Spreckles, who was really super good friend. Him and I were together a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And his creative visions took our boards and they were going someplace else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it does come around to where we end up today. Bunker was, if anybody saw what he was doing, was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And he was all based and working with individuals like Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
And Bunker had the bank to just tell them this is what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Help him make it. And that's when he created the air scoop
Mm-hmm.
for, and which brought on the Willis brothers eventually. Way down the road, the Willis brothers come up
Yeah.
with their bottom design.
I remember those. Yeah.
Yep. And then the Bonzer arrives. And
Mm-hmm.
so, there was a lot of innovation coming out of the drug heyday, I guess, of surfing
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
But
I could just imagine Jimi Hendrix popping up from the grave right now and going, absolutely, it inspired a lot of great stuff at that time.
Jimi Hendrix was an inspiration to everybody. I still love his music. It's
Me too.
way beyond it.
Yeah. Yeah. So at this time, so there's this sort of, there's psychedelics, there's drugs, there's great surfing, there's great changes happening in board design. How did all that go for you?
Well, for me, it went actually really good because from Steele and Ryland, or from Paul Steele, I happened to be in the right place at the right time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had already begun my, forward progression in what we called professional surfing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like 3 years younger than Jerry and Reno.
Mm-hmm. Jerry
And-
Lopez, Reno Avalon. Yeah.
Reno Abler and Jerry Lopez, who were already had their names because Reno was on the top of the line competitively. They were working with Brewer and with Bob McTavish sneaking into Hawaii at the time
Mm-hmm.
and bringing Nat Young with him, and then their Aussie creative innovations going on with the V-bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and they were incorporating the V-bottom, and that just changed everything.
Yeah. So you're out at, say, Honolulu Bay, and you're just seeing new lines being drawn on the wave, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, because Les Potts had taken the rocket ships and started to shrink them down and redesign the bottom and the rail lines.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was a test pilot for all this innovations going on, whereas Brewer went less hard edge, more hard edge in the tail,
Mhm.
softer rails, flatter bottoms, smaller fins. And so I ended up with a 6.6 from Brewer at Sunset,
Mhm.
surfing
Wow.
Sunset with Jerry telling me that board's not going to work.
Hmm.
Was one of the best boards I ever had in my life.
Wow.
And the fin was maybe 5 inches.
Wow. God, for those of us who didn't get to experience it firsthand, but who've read about it, etc., seen the movies, etc., it just seems so. I'm sure I romanticize it, but I imagine it as being sort of eating, breathing, sleeping, the sort of being in the water 3 times a day, being almost amphibious, where the feeling of riding these waves and doing these turns is just sort of electrifying you all the time. Was it like that?
Yeah, I wanted to fly. I mean, definitely.
Mhm.
I wanted to fly. I wanted to look down a line and go faster.
Mm-hmm.
How fast can I go? But how maneuverable can I be? That was always eat, sleep, and breathe. Riding the next day, no matter what. And, it didn't matter where. I mean, I had to go fish my board out of rocks and caves and things like that. Whereas today, none of the generations today ever experienced something like that unless their leash breaks, right? I had to swim a long way.
No, it's such an interesting thing because for the leash generation, of which I'm one of them, the idea of experimentation on the wave without a leash, it seems very challenging because when you put on a leash and then there's less at stake, right? You try something, you fall, your board's right there. But the idea of trying new boards, trying to ride new parts of the wave without a leash seems you pay the price in a much bigger way.
Well, you did, unless you had a mentality that put you in unison with whatever you wanted to do with the wave, not against it, but with it.
Yeah. And
so every time I went surfing, say Rocky Point, a lot of guys didn't surf Rocky Point when it got, big, 6 foot or more, because you lose your board, right? But my attitude was, I used to listen to a lot of symphonic music, and I loved watching a ballet, and my vision of myself was being able to dance with the wave.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that's every move I made. I didn't think about losing my board because whatever the board and the wave were doing, I was just doing my ballet with it because it was like they were my partners.
Yeah.
Right?
And you kind of get into these sort of flow states where everything's connected.
Complete rhythm.
Yeah.
You're in rhythm with it. And if you lost your board, I mean, to me, if I lost my board, I missed the movement. I didn't hear the same sound that they were hearing.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
So,
and we're talking now late 60s, early 70s. There's yet to be the IPS, let alone the ASP or the WSL. There are contests, but it's as I understand it, they were just sort of random competitions. Did contests figure into this for you, or were you more just experimenting in the water for its own sake?
To be honest, really honest, it's the worst fucking thing that happened to us. I was there when the first pipe contest took place, and with ABC Wide World of Sports, Fred Hemmings, and when he was mentoring Randy Rarick.
Yep.
And I told him right there, this is the end of surfing for what we really know it.
Wow. So were they trying to clear you out of the water or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was the only guy surfing.
Yeah. So this is an entirely new phenomenon. Now it's so common that people don't even think twice. But the idea of you're going to tell me I can't surf right now because you've got this scaffold on the beach and you're throwing this circus.
Well, they were, it was a circus. I mean, it was a circus, and they were filming it too, right?
Yeah.
And I just told Fred, hey, look, you guys can have your contests. I'll go right. And he said, okay. And I go, if they don't catch the wave, it's good going left. I'm going. And if I drop in and they want to drop in, that's fine. They better not fall down because I'm going to run them over.
Wow.
And that's that.
Wow.
And so I just went right. I just backdoor is what everybody calls it today, right?
Yeah.
And that was, and I have photographs of that.
Wow, that's incredible.
That day. And it was amazing. I'd never gone right.
That's so fascinating. It's so interesting because I think most surfers between the age of teenage years to 45, let's say, they've only known a world of surfing in which there's maybe a divide, and on one end of the spectrum is the sport and on the other end is the art, right? For you guys, it was purely the art. Was that what your very strong response to competition being the end of it as we know it? What do you think that was?
We have lost that art component. And it is good to see some of the guys today, the generational now, from, the way I saw it. To me, it's purely art. You're in one, you're in harmony. Maybe it's because my long drug years, I don't know. But I always saw it like that as a kid too. But when you look at it, it's become almost like a program. Everyone's surfing is based on a format.
Yeah.
Rather than what's inside of you,
Yeah.
and to go in a way that you want to serve. I think the last really true pleasurable time I watched somebody compete was Andy Irons. He was surfing the way he loved to surf.
Yeah.
And he was pushing the edges of surfing competition based on him. And, my youngest son, that's where we're at now. I mean, years I had him just watch Andy. I mean, and then Dane Reynolds and, these individuals that understand what it was about, but they want to surf. They want to surf for the love of what they're doing, and they understand what they have to do to maintain that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, if you look around this room, there's a lot of damn boards in this room, and it belongs to one 18-year-old kid, right? It's like, so, and it's his love for it. If he wants to compete, that's fine, but create yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Don't let the competitive format create you.
It's so interesting because I was a product of that in so many ways when I was in my teens and early 20s, but I feel removed from it now. And when I go, I'm staying on the North Shore right now, just sort of driving the stretch from, say, VLAN down to log cabins, the surfers walking along the, Cam Highway or Kainui Road, the boards they ride, the shorts they're wearing, their posture, everything is so a product of this sort of homogenization we're talking about.
Yes, it is. But it's not, I don't really see all that. I see every time I go to go ride, to go surf, is that when you look out into the lineup where there's masses of people now, is everyone, with exceptions, all surf identical.
Yeah.
And there's progressions, right? But those progressions come from other sports that funnel into surfing, like windsurfing.
Yeah.
That funneled the air game into surfing. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. You mentioned drugs earlier. Can we talk about drugs?
Sure.
What was your thing?
Oh my God. Psilocybin and cocaine. Loved it. I think the best cocaine ever was out of Bolivia. Ever. The pink coke was hands down flakes. It was just the best.
And at what point did it get out of hand for you?
Well, I was 19 and, I'd already moved into a different climate in my life, a lot more darker side of my surfing at the time. And there was a bunch of people in town and they bought a lot of coke with them and they needed to distribute it. So I took it. And then it got darker from there. And that was kind of a sad part of my life. Based on the guys I was hanging with, we made a decision that I would go to the house and make sure everybody took care of what I wanted to take care of. And that's where we're going to correct this, because a lot of people think I held a cop at gunpoint. No, I did not.
Wow. And no, so just so I'm clear, was it that you owed money, or did they have cocaine that you wanted
They had
to get?
cocaine.
Okay.
And we wanted all of it.
Okay. So you're basically robbing of them
Yeah,
of their coke.
totally.
Okay.
Totally ripping them off. And, Yeah. It was a really pretty radical thing because when the cop was coming up, I told everybody, don't anybody say anything. Don't anybody move. And that's that. I hid the gun. And then the cop came up, leaned on the car, talked to the cop. Cop said, okay, if you guys see anybody, let us know. The cop pulled away. Everybody went, push.
Oh, my gosh. So had someone called the cops or the cop just happened to stumble upon it?
Somebody called because of the gunshot.
Okay.
And so went to prison, and it wasn't for drugs. It was for, weapons and stuff like that. But I came back to surfing. I had no qualms.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But Coke was good.
When you were after that Coke, was it to sell it and earn money, or was it because you needed a fix kind of thing?
Oh, no. It's to make bank.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was all about making bank, but as part of the powerhouse on the North Shore at the time. They couldn't just come and sell on the North Shore. They had to go through us.
Wow. God, the North Shore sure has changed since those days.
We think.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. How much time in prison did you do?
Not long. I mean, I was in Halava for several months, and then I was out, and no witnesses showed up for the trial, so all charges were dropped. But then, at the urging of my mom and my family, I volunteered for NAM. And I went to go train in advanced military, and I was getting sent off. And the night before we were supposed to leave, I shot my commanding officer, and I shot my LT and 2 sergeants.
Shot them with guns?
In the barracks. Yep.
When you say you shot them, you actually shot them?
Yeah, I shot them. Well, they weren't dead.
Okay.
They were wounded.
Okay. Was it a kind of self-sabotage? Was it a way to get out of going to NAM?
Oh, no. I wanted to go to NAM. I was trained for it.
Okay.
We were an advanced military unit that was trained for guerrilla warfare, and we were going to be sent to NAM and then dropped off into the jungle on our own.
Wow. What made you shoot the 3 of them?
I was drunk and high again.
Okay.
And we were confined to barracks. And I just told them, F you. And then somebody decided to hit me with a billy club. And then it ensued from there. And then somebody was trying to pull a gun. So I grabbed it, and gunshots went off. Made it to the 3rd floor, and the MPs are firing. And
wow, Tom.
That was that. It was like, F them all. Let's go. I mean, if you got to go, you got to go, man. But that was another thing I survived. And I'm thankful for everybody that saved my life, that my friends that were there, because they all died. My whole unit died in Nam.
Wow.
So maybe it was my lucky thing that I didn't go.
Yeah.
Because I went to prison, yes, solitary confinement for a whole year in the box.
Jeez.
And I loved it.
Solitary
being in the
confinement for 1 year? How did you spend your days?
Well, the library cart would come every day, and I'd read. I learned to read in prison. I didn't know how to read.
In prison, were you getting any drugs, or were you sober that whole period?
Oh, no, sober, totally.
So you reformed yourself in many ways.
Yeah, I guess so. Prison was a good place for me
Yeah.
to be. It really, it was a necessary place for me to be.
And you read a ton.
I read all the British classics. I read the Greek classics.
Wow.
I read everything I could get my hands on.
It's so incredible, because thinking about the sort of trajectory that you were on before getting locked up would have been much more sort of sunshine and hedonism. And then suddenly you're locked up and you're feeding your mind.
Yeah, I had a choice, right? I could become a bigger asshole, or I could just enjoy my stay and just say this is the way life is, and I can do something positive about it that I've always wanted to do. Was I wanted to learn how to read English, and it gave me the opportunity to to do that, right? If it wasn't for a friend that noticed when I was 17 that I couldn't read, I wouldn't have started down the road to reading, because he used to read comic books a lot. And one day he asked me, "What's in the bubble?" And I had no answer.
Wow. And you were a teenager at this time?
Yeah. And so he started reading to me and having me follow along.
What do you think it was in you, in your character, that given those two extremes that you just described, you could become a bigger asshole or you could sort of put your head in the books? What part of you made the choice to go put your head in the books?
When I'd volunteered to go to Nam, I had already had my first son was born.
Okay.
And I just felt I needed to make a change for him. And that was an important thing, because I realized that I wanted my son more than I wanted to be involved in my surfing or people or any of that.
Yeah.
That was more important.
And so you did a year, and then you came out, and then what were your movements from there?
Secluded myself. My mom just had me working. We had a small ranch, a couple valleys down from here where we are in Waiahole. So she put me there, but eventually things caught up to me again.
Okay. Things as in drugs, or things as in the 3 guys you shot wanting revenge, or?
Oh, no, there was nobody to come revenge on me.
Okay.
There's no way you could do that. It was just getting caught up in the scene again. And going back to surfing.
Late 70s now, I'm guessing? Mid-70s?
Yeah, no, it was about still the early 70s.
Okay.
Between 71 and 75.
Okay.
Because I left surfing for good. Well, as Anne would say it, my wife, she would say, well, you really didn't leave it for good. You kind of walked away, and sometimes you dabbled in it. But I'd left surfing pretty much at 76, 77.
Okay.
Because I was falling back into the scene, and it was right back into the underworld of Hawaii and the drug underworld and taking people down. And so my wife at the time, Gail, she gave me an ultimatum and said, either quit surfing or don't come back and don't ever come see your son again. So I mulled over that, and I just quit. Gave all my surfboards away, gave all the drugs away. I went down to the beach and gave everything away. Everybody, just
wow.
My boards,
Christmas.
bags of drugs, just take them. See you. I'm out.
Jeez.
Yep. And I left.
And then how was that transition? What was that like?
It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, but I found another thing I wanted to do and to stay with the ocean, and that is, I became a lifeguard. And, I ended up on the North Shore.
Yeah.
Ended up working Waimea, Sunset, and Pipe.
Wow.
And that was my place.
Wow.
Worked with Eddie at Waimea. And
wow.
Stuff like that. And Eddie was, at the time, he was a rover, right? He didn't have to be anywhere.
Okay.
He could be anywhere he wanted. Wherever the surf was good, that's where Eddie was.
Was it hard to be a lifeguard and not be jumping out in the water and surfing?
No. I embraced Mark Cunningham's concept. You can ride a wave any way you like.
Yeah.
So I just put on fins. I had fins.
Oh, wow.
So I went body surfing a lot. Yeah.
And that was okay with the wife at the time?
Yeah, I was working.
Yeah.
So I had to go do water patrol.
Right. It's part of your job to get in the ocean. Yeah.
So water patrol, I had to go swim out and make sure everybody's okay, and I'll catch a few waves body surfing.
Wow.
But I never got back into the social aspect of the North Shore.
I see. What was the most memorable experience as a North Shore lifeguard in this period?
Um, there was the most memorable would be Waimea Bay. Well, not a big day, maybe 20, 25-foot day. And just one set, and everybody was gone from the beach. And there was just 3 of us. And we had to go rescue all these people.
And they all got swept down into the shore break, basically, from the sand?
They were standing there, and then they were gone.
Oh, my gosh.
And we saw it coming. And we already had our fins, rescue tubes, and we were running, but too late. So I made contact, and then, with two people, got them out of the shore break. The shore break was hammering.
Wow.
Got them out of the shore break, and we were in the rip, right? And the boys, so we had a plan. Since I was the first one out, that they would bring everybody to me, and then they would keep pulling people, right? And then we'll get everybody in.
Wow.
And so I had 11, 12 on one rescue tube and me.
Wow.
And then they were still bringing guys out.
So they're bringing them out to you. So basically swimming them through the shore break out into the channel between the outside of Waimea and the shore break. And you're hanging on to these folks.
Yeah, not trying to get, swept down to the left, to the rocks.
Sure.
Right?
I've seen that happen.
And so I'm always swimming towards the point and trying to hold there. And then by the time we all got together, then that struggle was getting us to the inside, what they call pinballs today. So we could use the white water to start shuttling people in.
Yeah. Go to the church side of the bay where it's easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's easier. So that was pretty heavy, because that was the only time when I learned that I had to say one thing, which was taught to me by Stephen Coeli, who was the guy that was training me when I first became a lifeguard in Waikiki. He said, remember, when you're in the water, all these people don't know what to do if you're there with them. You're God. Don't forget that. So when I was there in that situation, I just looked at everybody and I said, and this finger is God. You do exactly as I say, or you can die here. And that's that. Because when you die, I'm going home. Everybody did exactly as I said.
Wow. Jeez. Any shark encounters?
My entire life, it's been shark encounters. It's the way it is. I grew up that way.
Yeah.
That's our Amokoa, our family god. So I pretty much grew up around tiger sharks. I'm not saying, I don't shed in my pants if they happen to show up. But my mom and dad met that way because my mom was from Kauai, Anahola, and my dad was from Kohala, right, on the Big Island. And when he was in the military, he happened to be there at Anahola swimming off this old pier. And my mom was there too, so the shark arrived and was circling them. And so my mom ran home to get her tutu man, which is that would have been my great grandfather.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it has to be that. And so he came down and swam away with the shark.
Wow.
And that's how my mom and dad met. And
what do you mean swam away with the shark?
He just went to the shark and held his dorsal fin, and it swam away with him.
Wow.
In tow. And, that's the story that I had from my mom.
Okay.
And with my grandfather, the times I spent with him, we would go down to the beach, and he was a kahuna, and so he would show me the tricks of fishing without taking everything, right?
For our listeners, what's a kahuna?
Oh, a kahuna would be like a shaman, a priest, right, of Hawaiian ancestry, right? The masters of knowledge of whatever they were trained in. So my grandfather was like that. So he was teaching me about the ocean, how to read the water, how to smell it, whatever, the wind, the way it's affecting it, the certain types of seaweed coming in, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he would know what type of fish, right? And so, he started to take me places that I'd be swimming and then a shark would show up, It wasn't a big shark, I guess. I'm not sure because I was a little kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he would just step into the water and the shark would come and he'd pet the shark and the shark would swim away. So I thought that was the thing you're supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as a kid, when the shark came, I just ran to the shark and pet the shark.
Wow.
And, and then over time, it was just when I had stopped surfing and I'd come back to let's just say my native self,
Mm-hmm.
And my native upbringing and stuff. I started diving, going back to diving and fishing and everything. And lo and behold, there was a shark that would show up on the edge of my vision, right? You could see the shadow. And I'd always be kind of freaked out. And it was but I remembered one thing my grandfather always taught me is that, hey, if you see the shark there, your first catch, you leave it. So I was spearfishing at the time, right? No matter what, just drop it. And the shark wouldn't rush in. It would just swim along and then grab the fish and swim back out on my peripheral.
So you're sort of feeding the shark to sort of befriend it in some way or make peace with it.
Yeah.
Making an offering.
I guess we could say that, but it's the training, that knowing that it's their environment.
Yeah.
We're aliens to that environment,
Mm-hmm.
or we're secondary, because that's what my grandfather always did. He always fed the shark.
Mm-hmm.
So I was figured, okay, to be safe, because I'm swimming, it's swimming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and you take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said coming back to your native self, can we talk about this? And I know you're a scholar. You studied a lot of Hawaiian history. How did that? I'm guessing that happened after the prison stint, after the lifeguards period.
Yeah, all of that happened. No, it was happening during the lifeguard period. But I had, when I quit surfing, I quit everything.
Mm-hmm.
Drugs, drinking, everything, partying, the whole works.
Did you do 12 steps or did you just quit on your own?
I just quit.
Okay.
I just quit. And, there are withdrawal periods of time, but it wasn't as severe as they make it out in movies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people that can't cope, with it, and they need support.
Yeah.
So not to get really into that, but I was the individual that I could do it on my own.
Yep.
And that was that, because my whole focus was my son.
Mm-hmm.
Every day and every night was just my son.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my focus. So I didn't need any other focus. And I stopped drinking actually nearly 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Quit coffee, any kind of caffeines, didn't touch them. Sodas, nothing. And just no, even teas that have caffeine, I can't drink it.
Mm-hmm.
I get too wired.
Okay.
So it was that period of time that I began to find who I was and my connection to the ocean, right? And to my life.
Mm-hmm.
What was really important to my life was remembering that ocean is home.
Mm-hmm.
I am the ocean, and the ocean is me. Because that's our family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything has always been focused around the ocean. And it wasn't about surfing or anything else. It was about being part of that ocean and knowing where you belong. And that's what my native self was coming out of. I was allowing myself to be me, not dictated by my ego, not dictated by my desire to be famous or somebody. It was just to have life in the ocean, period.
Yeah. And so you went to college and you got a couple of degrees, right?
Well, yes, I did, but that goes along with the question you asked about, my connection with sharks. So prior to doing that in 93, I had an encounter with my aumakua, my family god, my shark. And over a period of times in my dream, I died in my dream. It was the most intense death, but what came out of it was a new light, a new life, because the shark, I saw it come and just devour me. And it wasn't like rip me up. It just swallowed me whole.
And this was in the dream?
In my dream.
Wow.
And as soon as I died, and I literally, in myself, my spirit, everything died, I could see from its eyes. And I saw my world. And so my wife at the time, when I woke up, I told her, I'm quitting. I'm going back to school. I'm going to go get my high school diploma, my GED, and I'm going to college. I have to do that. And she was going, yeah. She thought I was just going through this whole life crisis thing again. And I went, no. We'll be okay. Trust me. The kupuna, or our elders, our spiritual elders, they'll take care of us. No worries. And so I quit my job, got my GED in the summer of 93, registered for college in August of 93, and I never looked back.
Incredible. So was the dream a one-off dream or was it a recurring dream?
It was a one-off dream.
And it was just so profound it changed you.
It was totally profound. And it was just like, I was never so focused and dedicated to something that I so desired.
Incredible.
And it was inspired by an individual, as Anne would, talk about it, because I had gone to a meeting, and at that meeting, it was about understanding who we are as Native peoples. And they brought this educator from Missouri to tell us about ourselves. And I was so insulted. And when I I was being kind of abrasive, because it's really insulting, right?
Yeah,
to have somebody tell us about our culture and stuff like that. But he was really gracious at the end of this meeting. He came over and talked to me, and he just said the most profound words was, it's only because I have this degree that makes me an expert. The expert is really you. And I went, oh, that's how it is, huh? Okay, I got it. And that was kind of one of my driving forces.
Wow, that's great.
And so I told myself that'll never happen to me again. If anybody ever gets up and says, oh, I have this degree, well, bro, I'm going to get up and I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
I have these degrees and I'm the native.
Yeah. So at what age were you in 93 when you went back to college?
43.
Okay. And what was that period of studying, working towards a degree? What were the surprises? What were the interesting things that you learned about your culture?
That I knew something about my family, and I knew something about what was passed down throughout generations of our family. And that was, traditional knowledge of surfboards, traditional knowledge of the most extreme sports in the world and Hawaii. I knew all about it. I just never realized that I had known that everything, that I had paid attention.
Yeah.
I had paid attention to my great uncles, my grandfather, my dad, my mom. I had paid attention it had sunk in.
Yeah. But you just didn't have the sort of language for it at that time.
I didn't have a desire for it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, and not to be in any form or way racist. I wanted to be like that white kid.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be all the pretty things that he had. I wanted that pretty surfboard and everything. I didn't want the wood surfboard that my dad made me.
Yeah.
I hated that thing.
Yeah.
I told my dad, I hate that. And he broke it and burned it, right? But I realized that was all the knowledge of my family was in me. And that became the foundation of my entire academic career. Was everything that I've written, all the degrees I've gotten, is all been based on our family knowledge. And the way I was taught. Because, and just for verification, I got Uncle Rabbit before he passed away. And I asked him, can you just here at our house with other people and on camera, talk about the traditional knowledges of surfboards? And the one profound thing he said, the one most unique thing is that nobody cared back then. Nobody cares the names of all these boards, that they're all different. They're all for different type of surfing. And I was going, oh, Uncle Rabbit, you mean like today, all the different type of surfboards we make and design? He goes, yeah, people don't even realize that they're making the same thing, just out of different material.
Wow.
And I went, that's what I wanted to hear, Uncle Rabbit. That was like, and that's really has become my whole academic career.
So interesting. So in making from by hand ancient Hawaiian surfcraft, what's been the experience of that? What have you learned from that? What's been surprising about that?
Really, I learned a lot about the environment that these resources need, the length of time to even get the traditional type of wood, let's say wood. It takes a long time. It's not as easy as people think it is. I learned about the grains, about our native types of woods, right? So when I'm making, traditional Papa Head Nalu, surfboards, right? Wood surfboards. Yes, we can make it out of anything. But if you're going to make it out of something that you're going to ride, you got to understand the density of the wood and what type of wave you're going to be riding. And that is relative to the thickness of, say, using koa or ulu, right? Those are two most flexible woods that you can get down to like 5/8 of an inch thick, and it won't break.
Wow. When you're selecting these woods, you walk into the forest and you find a tree, yeah?
Well, I don't know if I find the tree or the tree finds me.
I like this.
I think the tree finds me.
Okay.
I'm just wandering. I know what I want to, I know what I'm looking for, but it's a spiritual connection that happens. It's sort of, like the light. It's like being in The Hobbit or the Two Towers or whatever. All of a sudden the light comes on. There's this shiny thing right there. It's really like that. All of a sudden it's just this aura around this tree. And we never stop to think about those things, is that it's a living entity, just like we are, and they're part of this planet, and they're alive. And what I gravitate to in that moment is that it's in distress. And that's what I see. And how can I save its life? And you can see what's happening to the tree. The environment around it is taking its toll. It's dying. And, that's what I look for. And then I take it and we dream together. I dream. And eventually my spirit and its spirit comes together. This is really how it happens for me. It just, all of a sudden we connect, and I know what it wants or what I need to do, and I just go to it. Sometimes I had a piece that took 5 years. Where we're sitting right now, it was sitting here, buried.
Wow.
And I was going through my wood pile, and I went, "Oh, that's where you are." And I pulled it out, and "Oh, I've been thinking about you. I got it now." And wham.
Wow.
Off it went.
I love the sort of spirit anima of this. Riding the boards in the water, do you feel that connection? And the other thing I want to ask is, having tried the alaya, I definitely had the feeling of a time before fins, for lack of a deeper description, but just this sense of the slide,
Well, my wife likes the story she really likes to tell and it was kind of funny. It was really, really funny. I'd made this 15-foot Olo, beautiful board, paddled it out with her, and I caught this wave, maybe 3 foot, and I went to go turn it, just like I was riding my 6'6". So the board went one way and I went the other way. The board went where it wanted to go and I went the other way. And she was like right there and she was just laughing. And that was my first experience getting back on a wood board. I just learned the fact is how masterful my elders were in riding those boards.
Yeah.
And how graceful. And I understood that's when my boyhood memory came back of riding wood boards, is that there's a real finesse to everything. Everything is when you're catching the wave, you're already setting the board up for that glide already. You're good to go. The way it really starts, if everybody looks really closely, when they're paddling for the wave and all the, the footage from the, 1920s and 30s and stuff, when they're paddling for the wave, if they're going right or left, the last thing that leaves the water is their hand. And their body, you already look, their head, it's the same thing we do today. When you're dropping in, your hand is in that wave. Even if it's just a fingertip is enough to make that board go where you want it to go.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with the wood board.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And it's just, it'll do exactly what you want. And if you want to redirect, all it is a stall and lay it down and it'll go.
Wow. Tom, I think I've covered everything I want to cover, but is there anything we've missed that you want to get into?
I mean, I hope that generations to come understand what surfing really is to self, right? Because my granddaughter was at the top of the QS and just going into the CT. And whenever she called me up and wanted to talk about it, I always just told her, whenever you go out, just remember why you started surfing, because for the love of it all. And, she quit. She quit the circuit, and she was at the top of her game, and she just didn't feel it anymore. And my oldest son is a super competitor, 3-time world champion in windsurfing. And she just told him, I don't want to compete no more, Dad. I just want to surf. I just love surfing, like Papa said.
Yeah.
Love to surf. And that's where we are with our kids now in our families, is that why are you doing it? Competition, you want to compete, just don't forget. Don't forget where you come from. That's all. And I think that's a good message to all these generations. You surfing because you want to make money, or you surfing because you love it? Because if you love it, you'll make money anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Soundings is brought to you by the Surfer's Journal and is produced by me, Jamie Brissick, and Jonathan Shiflett. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Our theme song is Give Me a Wave by Asuka Matsumiya and Paz Lenchantin. The Surfer's Journal is a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Outerknown, Patagonia, Rainbow Sandals, Vans, and Yeti. The journal is published bi-monthly. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to visit surfersjournal.com and subscribe. This episode of Soundings is presented by Costa Sunglasses, the badge of the explorer. For over 40 years and counting, Costa has remained steadfast in their dedication to not only crafting the most durable, functional, and long-lasting eyewear, but in protecting our waterways and natural resources. Whether you're on the back deck scanning for yellowtail, eyeing a set swinging wide at an empty point, camped out on a bluff at the end of a rotted two-track, or anywhere and everywhere in between, Costas are built to help you see what's out there. Head over to costadelmar.com today to find just the right pair for you, no matter where the water takes you. Thank you for listening to Soundings, and until next time.